Good Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a great day. Plenty of Browns to talk about today, and we're excited to have Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com as our guest. Kay, we watched the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Eagles. Yesterday we had a couple of callers call in and say they thought that the Browns were not really close. I kind of disagreed. I said if you fix that front seven defensively, I can see some similarities.
Well, I'll tell you what, the first thing that you have to have is the quarterback, and they have that. I mean, half the battle is getting that amazing elite quarterback, and now they have that. That's why the Browns went out and, again, put their fan base through all the controversy, spent all of that money and gave up all of those draft picks so that they could have someone that could compete with the Patrick Mahomes of the world, the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows. So they have that. When you know you have that, then I think you can honestly say, okay, you know, we've got a chance. We have an opportunity to do this. Now, as you mentioned, they have to fix some other things, but they'll do that. I mean, they have no qualms about doing that. They know what they have to do. They have to bolster that defensive line. They have to get some more pass catchers. But those things are gravy if you have the quarterback. So they've got the biggest piece in place.
And along those lines, I know you've addressed this in a Hey, Mary Kay. What do you think it'll take for Deshaun Watson to be talked about again among the elite quarterbacks in the league?
Well, you know, the first thing I think that needs to happen is I really do think that they need to upgrade some of the supporting cast around him. If you watch these playoffs, you watch the Super Bowl, you see some guys making just absolute tremendous catches, the tight ends, the receivers, the A.J. Browns. I mean, it was, you know, that was one thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that you've got to have more of those guys. Again, I don't really know if the Browns agree with me on that as much as I feel that it's a priority. But I think David Njoku needs to step up his game. I mean, he needs to be able to provide just more impact. He needs to be more dynamic, more consistent. Then, of course, they've got Amari Cooper. You know, you can put him right up there with the A.J. Browns and the best receivers in the NFL. But they need a couple more guys like that. And Donovan Peoples-Jones does a really nice job. I would add two more guys, at least two more guys that can go out there and be everything that you need them to be, especially guys that are kind of fast, guys that are kind of twitchy, and can get you the run after catch and do all the things that you need to do. I think that they can utilize more Deshaun Watson's legs more. You know, I thought we saw Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen, new Colts coach Shane Steichen, be very aggressive with Jalen Hurts when it comes to taking shots downfield. And I think the Browns are going to be able to do that more, but you've got to have somebody that can get down there. So that's where, again, some of that speed comes in.
And again, I know this is, again, from one of your Hey, Mary Kays. Do you think they steal, borrow, you know, something from the Eagles' run game that we saw that was so effective?
I think so. I think they will borrow things from all of the playoff teams. They'll borrow things from the Eagles. They'll borrow things from the Chiefs. When you looked at some of the things that the Chiefs did, I mean, those two touchdowns that they got off of the fake motions. I mean, those were, that was poetry in motion is what that was. And you can always expect Andy Reid to come up with something like that. And that's what the Browns are going to need to do. They're going to need to look under every nook and cranny and stone to find really cool plays like that to surprise and shock the opponent. And I think they will. I think it's a creative staff. Now, the staff might be changing a little bit, and we'll probably get into that as we go through this segment. But, I really do think that there are things that they can glean from this Super Bowl and from the playoffs.
All right, so let's take a look at this. Every NFL team's biggest draft mistakes over the past 5 years, Pro Football Focus. And for the Browns, it's failing to find value in the third round. So 2018, it was Chad Thomas. 2019, it was Sione Takitaki. He kind of stepped up a little bit and then got hurt. Jordan Elliott, Jacob Phillips, 2020. Anthony Schwartz, 2021. Now you do have Martin Emerson, Alex Wright, David Bell in 2022, so that's better. And then the other one for the Buffalo Bills, trading Wyatt Teller for pennies. Teller was given away in a pick swap for some reason. Bills getting a 2020 fifth and sixth round pick, giving the Browns back a 2021 seventh round pick and Wyatt Teller. Andrew Berry's got to get he has got to hit on those mid-round picks. He's had some success later. Peoples-Jones comes to mind. But that third round, especially because they've traded the first-round picks, they got to start hitting on those.
Yeah, the third round is a place where you expect to get starters. Maybe not day one starters, maybe not year one starters. But in the third round, you hope that you will be finding players that are going to start and be part of your core over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So you have to hit on those picks. You cannot be missing on them by any stretch of the imagination. It's a vitally important round, especially in 3 years when you don't have first round picks, right? They really better hope that that Alex Wright turns into more of a pass rusher than he was last year. You have to hope that that David Bell steps it up and that he can be even better. Now, when you look at last year, Jordan Elliott and Jacob Phillips, they did not grade out that well. They weren't able to contribute the way that everyone thought that they would, or at least with the Browns thought that they would. So now let's see what they do under Jim Schwartz. Let's see what Jim Schwartz thinks about Jordan Elliott. We know that he's got a knack for bringing out the best in tackles and in identifying tackle talent. So let's see what he thinks about Jordan Elliott and what he can do with him. And then Jacob Phillips, he's been injured for the past couple of years. So, that really hasn't worked out the way that anyone has hoped. And then Anthony Schwartz. I mean, this is a prove-it year for Anthony Schwartz, whether or not he's even going to be able to make the football team. I mean, he's got to prove that he can handle the game mentally and emotionally as well as physically. So these are some things that they're going to have to prove in that third round.
And as far as the Wyatt Teller trade goes, that was a good one for Andrew Berry. That's right up there with the Amari Cooper trade that Andrew Berry made.
Some of Andrew Berry's best moves have been the trades that he has made. I mean, actually, Wyatt Teller was a John Dorsey.
Yeah. Yep.
We got to give that one to John Dorsey. Yep. You can definitely give Amari Cooper to Andrew Berry, and that was great because if they had not traded for him and he ended up on the open market, chances are you were not going to land him because he would have had many other opportunities. But yeah, you've got to give John Dorsey credit for Wyatt Teller, and John did a lot of good things. I mean, he added a lot of talent to this football team, but I still feel like he made the biggest error in a long, long time on this football team, and that was passing on Josh Allen and drafting Baker Mayfield instead. Yeah,
it's hard to argue. Time gives you the perspective, and that was not the choice, and it was a critical error. All right, former Browns offensive coordinator Todd Monken, is now the Ravens offensive coordinator. So the Ravens went with him. Chad O'Shea was also a candidate for that job. And also a local guy from St. Ignatius High School, Jonathan Gannon, defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, will be named the Arizona Cardinals head coach. That means Drew Petzing is a leading candidate to join him as an offensive coordinator. So you kind of had alluded to that. For the Browns, maybe it gives the offense a couple of fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, I was able to, as far as I know, break the story that Drew Petzing is going to be the offensive coordinator. It hasn't happened yet, but it's very likely to happen that he'll bring Drew Petzing with him, and that comes from their very strong relationship when they were together for 4 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings. Those guys got close, and he likes what Drew brings to the table. If anybody got a chance to read my Jonathan Gannon takeout that was in Sunday's paper and online on Saturday and Sunday, I talked, in there a little bit about his philosophy on certain things. And then today, when I wrote about Jonathan Gannon taking that Cardinals head coaching job, he doesn't think that the resume is the most important thing. He doesn't believe that you need to have coordinator experience to come and work for him as a coordinator. And he's very adamant about that. He learned that from Nick Sirianni. When Nick Sirianni took the Eagles job, he hired Shane Steichen and quickly gave the play calling duties over to him, even though he had only been a play caller for 1 year. And then Jonathan Gannon had not called plays before. He hired him as his defensive coordinator. And Michael Clay, special teams coordinator, had not been a coordinator before. So I think you'll see that same kind of vibe. I think you'll see Jonathan Gannon, maybe as a first-time head coach, he will emphasize some experience at somewhere on the staff, or maybe have one or two of those kind of wise old sage guys on the staff for help. But I think, he learned a lot from Nick Sirianni, that it's about the person, it's about the intangibles, it's about the football acumen, not so much about the resume.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Take a look at some predictions for next season. They're already out for 2023. Sports for CLE. Will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys. Big congrats to Joe Thomas, one of Cleveland's greats. Hey, my thoughts are in regard to the Browns' out-of-division opponents next year. Our last-place finish has us playing a number of weaker opponents. We should be favored in the majority of these matchups, providing Andrew Berry and his staff fix the defense and adds that speedy threat on offense. First, we get an extra home game. We'll take that. Second, only 3 of those teams made the playoffs, not from our division. Third, the QBs we'll face are really lower-tier guys with a couple of exceptions. We have to take this golden opportunity to max this roster out smartly and use this huge advantage to get to the playoffs next year and play at least 500 ball in a division. Some would say the Eagles played a weak schedule this year. They didn't waste their opportunity to get in the playoffs and make some noise. What do you guys think? Thank you. Bye now.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, defer to you to answer that one first.
Yes. Can you repeat the question for me?
So with the schedule, it kind of lines up with the last place schedule, and there's some not any of the elite quarterbacks. So you got to take advantage of that, being the Browns.
Yes, absolutely. That has a lot to do with the success or lack thereof in a season, the strength of schedule and who you have to play. So, but you never really know how those things are going to work out until you get into a season. So, teams that you think might not be very strong end up being really, really strong. and vice versa. So, it's early in the year to make determinations based on those kinds of things.
But to the caller's point, the Browns do need to get the defense fixed and get some speed receivers as well. Those were the 2 points, and I think everybody pretty much would be in agreement with that.
Yeah, I would think so. I would absolutely think that would be the case. Again, we'll start to know more as we move towards free agency and the combine. All of those things are going to be happening very, very quickly. Here we are in mid-February, and by the time we get to the end of the month, we'll be heading to the combine and kind of getting an idea and a feel there for who will be hitting that free agent market, who are the top prospects in the draft, and what the acquisition period is going to be all about. But as you mentioned, I think we can all agree on certain things, and that is defensive tackle, edge rusher to replace a Jadeveon Clowney, and then some speed at receiver.
All right, this is from CBSSports.com, NFL Power Rankings after the Super Bowl. So Chiefs 1, Eagles 2, Bengals from the Browns division ranked 3rd. They ranked the Browns at 23rd. Deshaun Watson will have a full season with the Browns in 2023, which makes them a better team, but he didn't look great when he played last season. I understand the rankings. It's the old Bill Belichick line. I can only go by what I see. But if Deshaun Watson isn't significantly better than he was last year, it's going to be a rough season.
Well, you know what? I really think that, probably we all overestimated what he was going to be able to do coming off 700 days off, coming into a brand new offense, not knowing his personnel, being suspended for 11 games, all of those things. I think everyone thought that, he just might look right away like the 2020 version of himself. So, now that he's around in the offseason, now that he knows the lay of the land, now that he knows what he has to ask for, and the Browns know what he needs, I think it will be a lot better. I think that, he won't be shy about saying, hey, maybe we need to do, whatever, more RPOs or maybe some more no huddle or whatever the case may be. I think they will all put their heads together and try to come up with a way to make sure that he looks a lot more like the quarterback, the 3-time Pro Bowl quarterback that we all know he is.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I certainly underestimated how much the layoff would affect him. And if you think it through and think about it logically, everything you said, it makes sense that he would, it would take time. 2023 predictions for every team. This is from Sports Illustrated. Browns, they will win 10 games. Feels like their schedule too generous for them not to come close. Browns have dates set with future bottom dwellers, Cardinals, Broncos, Texans, and Colts. Those 4 teams have new head coaches. But as you said, teams that seem to be bottom dwellers in August some of them tend to look pretty good once you get on the field in September or October. So it's early to play the schedule game, but the schedule there isn't the looming, Justin Herbert and those kind of guys on this schedule coming up.
Well, in some cases, you don't know exactly who the quarterback is going to be for some of these teams yet, right? So what you think might happen might not exactly turn out that way. And then, of course, when you look at the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, if he's back healthy, that's not going to be necessarily easy for him. And then you've got Sean Payton working with Russell Wilson. That could work out pretty well. And now you've got Shane Steichen taking over for the Colts. He's been there before. He knows the lay of the land. So you just don't really know yet. Again, it's just, I think, a little bit too early to make sweeping proclamations on what might happen. And then, of course, right here in their own division, all of these teams are always tough. So anything can happen. Yeah.
The Bengals have been really good the last 2 years. AFC Championship game last 2 years. Again, I know you've answered this question in your Hey Mary Kay. How long do you think it will take defenders to pick up the scheme that Jim Schwartz brings?
Well, I mean, it might take a little while, but he's been around long enough to know how to implement his scheme. I think he'll bring in a defensive line coach probably that will help him get that up and running, which is the most important part of his defense. I think he knows how to, how to coach them up so that they can grasp things early on. If he has to simplify things a little bit, so be it. But I really don't think that, he will be reinventing the wheel or put too much on their plate where they can't play fast. Everybody knows the importance of getting off to a strong start next season. And I think he'll make sure that they can do that however they have to.
Do you think there are any huge changes that are in store, or do you think, many of the pieces kind of stay the same?
Well, they're going to be looking for a new secondary coach to replace Jeff Howard. He's already left to take the linebacker coach with the Chargers. As I mentioned before, I think Chris Kiffin could be on the move. So those two spots, will be filled. And then from a personnel standpoint, I do think, of course, we know that there will be some additions at pretty much the first two levels. From the defensive line spot and at linebacker, there will probably be some changes. You've got a number of guys coming off of injury at linebacker. You have to see what Jim Schwartz has in mind at the linebacker position, if he likes some of the bigger guys at times to help stop the run. So, there will be changes, but I think they'll be able to play good defense early on.
Mayor Kay Cabot and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at some tiers in the NFL as well. Let's talk a little bit about Kevin Stefanski, give you an interesting stat about Kyle Shanahan and Kevin Stefanski relative to Kyle Shanahan. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. This is from ESPN.com. NFL overhaul teams stacking all 32 teams from contenders to rebuilds. And they have the Browns in a comfortable spot despite a losing season. Along with the Browns, Packers are also in this tier. Average age of roster, 28 years old. Salary cap space, minus 13.5. That's a little misleading because with the rollover, they actually have some space and they'll create more. Total 2023 draft picks, 8. What's next? Without a first-round pick in April's draft, Browns will have a few needs to address in free agency. Secondary had too many breakdowns early in the season. Free agent Jesse Bates, though likely to sign an expensive contract, would help shore up those issues. Browns also need defensive line help and an additional receiver. Mary Kay, I normally don't say I agree with that, but that kind of nailed the thing. They have some work to do, but they have the resources to get done what they need to do.
Yeah, right now they really don't. But they can easily move some commas around and spread some salaries out, restructure some contracts, and they will have the money, rest assured, they will have the money to do whatever they want to do to upgrade this roster in any way they see fit. So no one should worry that they're cap strapped or anything like that. These are the smartest guys in the business. They know what they're doing. and it won't be hard for them to clear the cap space that they need. So, I think you can look realistically at some of the top free agents in the NFL and know that they can toss their hat in the ring and try to get some of those guys here. And when you have a quarterback like Deshaun Watson, I think it makes it that much easier to attract free agents. They want to come to a place where they're going to win.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, I know you've had this in one of your Hey Mary case. Does Kevin Stefanski need to show more personality?
No, I don't think so. I think a coach needs to be himself. You can be, you can be animated, you can be stoic, you can be whoever you are, but that's what you need to be. You need to be genuine. You cannot fake it in the NFL. If there are certain things that players need in terms of if they want more interaction or whatever like that, he can grow into that. If that's something that, he feels like he needs to do, or players really would like more of that. But just in general, you shouldn't try to be something other than what you are. Bill Belichick, didn't try to become some warm and fuzzy guy, and it certainly didn't stop him from winning Super Bowls. You can do it in many, many different ways. You just have to be genuinely 100% yourself. Yeah.
Again, a locker room can spot something that isn't genuine, and that is never a good thing. This is kind of interesting. This is from Jack Duffin. If Kevin Stefanski wins 4 regular season games in 2023, he will have won more regular season games than Kyle Shanahan did in his first 4 years as a head coach. And again, we keep finding things to say. Be patient. It takes guys a little bit of time, especially when you aren't tied to a quarterback. With his first year as a quarterback, now we expect to see some things, at least from in my mind.
Yeah, the quarterback has everything to do with it. If Andy Reid had played the whole season with Chad Henne, they would not have been in the Super Bowl, okay? If Jalen Hurts had gotten hurt, chances are the Eagles might not have made it to the Super Bowl. The quarterback means everything. And even when you look at that Kyle Shanahan stat, there were times when he just didn't have his quarterback, where he got hurt, and he did not have his guy for most or all of those seasons. So you just can't make those kind of comparisons. But the whole key now for the Browns is they went out and did what they did for a reason, and that was to be able to compete with the Super Bowl contenders like the Chiefs, like the Bengals, all of these great, like the Bills, all of these great AFC teams. The hard part about it is, of course, Deshaun Watson is going to be trying to make it to a Super Bowl in the Patrick Mahomes era, and that is not going to be easy for him or anyone.
Yeah, yes. Kansas City, you also have Josh Allen, you also have Joe Burrow. So it is not an easy road in the AFC. Ranking every 2022 NFL draft class after year one. This is from CBS Sports. Jets number 1, Seahawks number 2, Lions number 3. They say the Browns were number 28. Year one hits, Martin Emerson. Emerson quietly had a strong debut, 15 pass breakups, 63 tackles, as one of the primary outside cornerback starters for the Browns. Other rookies in 2022, yet clearly not ready for big-time positive impact on the Browns. And that's fair. And if you don't have a first-round pick, you're going to be a little bit lower after 1 year anyway. But it's fair.
Well, they didn't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick. So their draft began in the third round. If you chopped off everybody else's first and second round picks and then did the rankings from third on, it would be completely different. So this one, it's really, it goes with an asterisk.
Yeah, I agree. All right, before I let you go, you wrote an article about David Bell. Take us through that. That's one of those guys that kind of was banged up a little bit and didn't have the type of first year that he wanted, I'm sure.
Yeah, David Bell has the bar set high for himself, and that's good. When I talked to him, he basically said, I want to be the best. I want to separate myself from the rest. And I think it's good to hear him talk like that. Because if you have the bar set that high, you're going to work extremely hard in the offseason to bring your game up. And that's what he needs to do, because Deshaun Watson needs really, really good receivers. And the Browns are going to have to go out and get some more. And if David Bell is going to be one of the guys that's on the field most of the time, then he has to get better. He's got to get better, and I'm sure he will.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Always really good, insightful stuff. The pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Tom Withers from the Associated Press, straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Earlier today, former Seattle Seahawk linebacker KJ Wright was on the 92.3 The Fans Baskin and Phelps show talking about a move that he thought the Browns probably should make this offseason.
The Browns, you just look at this team. What are they going to do going forward? You traded the house for Deshaun Watson. You gave up everything for him. And let's see, how are they going to maximize bringing him in? And call me crazy, guys, but I'm not a fan of pairing a Nick Chubb with the Deshaun Watson. I don't believe that Deshaun has any business under center handing the ball off to him 25 to 30-plus times a game. Deshaun Watson is the guy that needs to be in shotgun, airing the ball out downfield to speedy receivers. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see how are they going to approach this offense to maximize that big-time move they made. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how all things play out.
KJ Wright joining us. KJ, that's an interesting thought. So what do? If you're Kevin Stefanski, you're calling plays, Alex Van Pelt, you're designing plays. You have a big-time running back who I think is a Hall of Fame running back and still in his prime, yet you have a quarterback who you think should be playing a different style of football. What do you do there?
Man, listen, it doesn't start with Stefanski. It starts with the general manager. And I love Nick Chubb, have the utmost respect for him, one of the best guys that I ever competed against. But you have got to find a way to get some draft picks that you lost in this Deshaun Watson trade. And so if you have got to revamp this offense. Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson do not belong on the same football field together. So you may have to make another blockbuster trade to maximize Deshaun Watson and get some receivers in there, boost up their offensive line some more. So it's going to be a trade that hurts the franchise. They're going to be so confused. And why did y'all trade away our best football player? But we've seen that it's been done before. We saw when the Cowboys did it back in the day. They ended up being a Super Bowl team. And so that's the move that you have to make if you want to make sure that you have a successful football season next year.
Let's welcome in Tom Withers from the Associated Press. So, Tom, KJ Wright saying because of the style that is suited to Deshaun Watson, he would trade Nick Chubb. I see what he's saying. I don't think I agree with it.
Davey's crazy. They didn't make this blockbuster trade last year to finally get the quarterback, to bring him in and then trade arguably your best offensive player immediately. That doesn't make any sense to me. Look, I think especially for people on the outside, I don't think they fully appreciate, what the Browns had to go through last year as a team and as a fan base to wait out the Deshaun Watson situation. And they only had him on the field for 6 games. So while people don't like to hear it, it is still a work in progress. And so I think, what this offseason is really devoted to is, first of all, the Browns figuring out what they do have, what their upside is at certain positions. If we want to talk about the offensive side, it's clearly what can they do to upgrade the wide receiver situation. They were fortunate enough to get a guy like Amari Cooper in here last year, who turned out to be one of the absolute steals of all time in terms of getting a player of that caliber for, what was it, a 5th-round draft pick?
Yeah.
So I think really this offseason, Dave, comes down to, okay, what do they got? Let's figure out how maybe to, modify the running game a little bit to not only use Nick Chubb, who is clearly one of the 2 or 3 or 4, however you want to rank him, best running backs in the NFL, but then how do you then utilize Deshaun Watson's skill set as a runner to complement that? What more can you get out of guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Bell? And what more can you get out of the tight end position? So again, I think it's more about figuring out what they've got, how to best maximize having Deshaun Watson here and hanging on to number 24. I don't think they're trading him anytime soon. Maybe I'm completely nuts, but bigger and crazier things have happened. But I guarantee you, if you question that coaching staff right now on who their favorite player is on that team, I promise you that number 24 is at the very top of many of their lists.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. And so a little bit later in that same show, another former NFL linebacker, Chad Brown, had this to say about trading Nick Chubb.
I got a lot of respect for KJ and his career. Being a former Seahawks linebacker, there's a kind of a brotherhood there. But I think he's absolutely incorrect. What great quarterback is not helped by a great running game? I don't understand the thinking that those two are incompatible. Your offense is going to be better if you have some balance. If you want your quarterback to throw the ball 70% of the time, maybe then you can go with that kind of thinking. But I think we want balance. Part of the reason why the Eagles were in the Super Bowl wasn't because Jalen Hurts threw the ball 70% of the time on offensive snaps. It's because they had some balance. He ran the ball. They ran the ball well as a team. And when they headed to running backs, and they threw the ball well. Balance is critical.
And again, that's a very valid point. You will significantly harm the run game if you trade Nick Chubb.
Sensibility out of a Pittsburgh Steeler. What's going on here? Yeah, I totally agree. I think, and he brings up an interesting point. I think that Eagles model that you saw this year is one that I think the Browns are going to take a very close look at this offseason. They had a very effective running game, and it was very simplistic. And again, there were some RPOs and there were some other kind of, interesting things that they did because of Jalen Hurts' skill set, which is very comparable to what Deshaun Watson does. So I do think you're going to see a different look out of this Browns offense last year. I think they really just scratched the surface because it was about knocking off all that rust that Deshaun had, trying to integrate him Trying to catch a moving train 11 weeks into the season, which was not an easy task for him, for the coaching staff, or for any of his teammates. So, all the pain that everybody had to go through last season was for a reason, and I think you're going to see a very different look out of that Browns offense come 2023.
All right, this from Dog Pound Daily. 3 contracts holding the Browns back right now. Number 3, Wyatt Teller heads into the 2023 offseason with a cap hit of $15.426 million. Number 2, John Johnson III, cap hit of $13.5 million. Number 1, Deshaun Watson, cap hit $54.99 million. Over the cap, says they can free up $33.69 million with a contract restructuring of Deshaun Watson alone, which I would expect them to do. Tom, none of those. They're going to be able to do just fine. They'll restructure. We know that Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta, and those guys, they already know how they're going to restructure it to create all kinds of cap space. So the question I have for you, you've got Watson, Teller, Bitonio, Conklin, Ward, Myles Garrett, John Johnson III, Chubb, Cooper, and Njoku. I believe they're all over $10 million, some approaching $55 million. Do you expect the Browns to make a trade with them or one of those guys to acquire some of the things they need because you have so many high-priced guys?
Yeah, boy, isn't it amazing when you start throwing around that kind of money, what these guys are making now? I mean, it just feels like in the last 5 years that the contracts have just become so inflated. But you're right, and to a degree, it is kind of monopoly money, Dave. They are going to be able to, maneuver several of these, and I think you're exactly right. I think it begins with the Watson deal, which, was historic, and now, unless the Browns restructure that, will saddle them and make it very difficult for them to operate financially going forward. So I would expect that to be the first domino to fall. And I think because of, the loyalty, if you will, that the Browns showed Deshaun Watson, there's got to be a willingness, I think, on his side. And I'm sure there was some kind of talk about this when they made their initial agreement before the trade, that they need to be partners in this. They need to be able to work together. So I think Deshaun has to be a willing participant in having that contract restructured. And, from everything he said and the way he's acted in the time he's been here, there's no reason to believe that he doesn't want to be a team player. He's talked, very openly about coming here to win a Super Bowl. And if he wants to do that, then they're going to have to bring in other assets to help him on both sides of the ball. So I do think it begins with him. And, in terms of moving any of those guys, you just rattled off pretty much the core of this team, right? So I think it would be very difficult. I mean, could you move one or two of those guys? Yeah, but I think then you're going to be weakening spots that might already be susceptible to, an injury and Lord knows we've seen that here, right? I mean, you take a look at that linebacking core last year where you went through 4 starters. You look at that offensive line where I know a couple of those guys played hurt most of last year. I thought it was a good move by the Browns late in the season to sign Jack Conklin to that 4-year deal to solidify that right side of the line. They've got a big decision to make with Jedrick Wills over on the left side in terms of picking up his contract option, which I do expect them to do. And then you think about whether or not he can be the long-term answer for them at left tackle. So there's, as you mentioned before, Dave, there's plenty of maneuvering that they can do. This is why Paul DePodesta and Andrew Berry get paid the big bucks. I'm sure those are the kind of conversations that they've had since the end of the season and are going on right now.
Tom Withers and I are going to step aside, take another timeout. Other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. A look at some wide receivers that could be cap hits, cap casualties from other teams. 2 tiers of them: expensive, reasonably priced. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tom Withers from the Associated Press. We've talked about getting some weapons for Deshaun Watson, some explosive plays in this offense. These are potential wide receiver cap casualties for the Browns. Keep an eye on this from from the Orange and Brown report, rather. DeAndre Hopkins, you see the cap number, $30.75 million. It'll be interesting to see. That's a guy that has played with Deshaun Watson, as is this guy, Brandon Cooks, cap number $26.4 million. Keenan Allen from the Chargers, $21.7 million, his cap number. Adam Thielen, 32 years old, from the Vikings, $19.9 million. This one is really intriguing. Michael Thomas really hasn't been on the field in a couple of years, cap number $13.5. Robbie Anderson, at $12 million. And then Tyler Boyd from the Bengals, $10.25 million. They have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins coming up. So, Tom, those are the expensive tier. Do you see Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta going for a Ferrari to add to this offense?
Yeah. I was going to say, that's an enticing menu of entrees right there, wasn't it? And boy, don't you see, Dave, how what this offense could be though with that second guy, right? I mean, people have wrung their hands all season long about how far away this Browns team was, and I heard that from friends during the playoffs, that when they were watching these playoff teams, there was lamenting the fact that the Browns don't have that second wide receiver, never mind that third wide receiver, which so many teams have. So clearly it's an absolute point of emphasis in this offseason. And I think, part of it too, as we talked about earlier, is seeing what kind of upside you have and what you do have now. But you're right. I mean, there are going to be those guys that are going to become available because they get priced out on the teams that they're on. The Browns have a very same dilemma at certain positions as well. So, the good thing is that there's going to be opportunity out there. That's not to say too that you're not going to be able to find a good wide receiver in the second round of the draft, or if you're able to package something together to move into the bottom part of that first round of the draft as well. But the free agents and the cap casualties are going to be out there. I think it's important too, Dave, in watching these playoffs, and I know it's a big reason why the Browns signed a guy like Jakeem Grant last year, or why they were intrigued by a guy like Anthony Schwartz. You need that twitchy, fast guy. And the Browns really lack that right now, right? I mean, you watched both the Eagles and the Chiefs on Sunday. They both have that player that they can put him in motion on jet sweeps, or somebody that they can stretch the field with. The Browns don't have that right now. Not to say that Grant can come back and take over punt return duties and maybe get on the field a little bit for you. I know they don't want to give up on Anthony Schwartz. They like the kid a lot. He's a hard worker. They've worked with him in terms of kind of having him overcome some of those mental hurdles that seemed to be getting in the way for him last year. So they still are holding out hope that he can become what they need him to be. But hey, there's plenty of wideouts out there. Again, there's no reason why they can't go out and find a guy again that's going to complement Amari Cooper.
And really, none of the higher priced ones are that twitchy guy. Let's take a look at these. These are more affordable wide receivers that could be cap casualties. Kendrick Bourne, $6.8 million. Brandon Ayuk, that's an interesting guy to keep an eye on, $3.9 million. Isaiah McKenzie from Buffalo, $2.9. KJ Hamler, there's another twitchy guy, $2.2. Denzel Mims from the Jets, $1.7. Dwayne Eskridge, a guy from Western Michigan, $1.6 million. Those are some of those guys that are not making as much money are the guys that you're talking about. Get the ball in their hands.
Yeah.
They threaten the defense 53 yards across and, 100 yards down the field.
Yep, and I think that's, obviously what, when we watched Watson through those 6 games, and there were some really good moments and there were some real head scratchers as well, right? And so, I do know that Kevin Stefanski, believes that this kid is the guy that's going to get this team to the Super Bowl. He trusts in the skill set. You got to hope that a year removed or whatever it will be from the off-field allegations will allow him to kind of settle in a little bit. And I think that's, to me, David, the wide receiver, the talent-wise is one portion of this, but I think the bigger part of the equation is Watson and getting him comfortable and figuring out an offense that's going to best suit his skill set. So, while we talk about, the X and Y and Z receivers and all that, and finding the speed guy and what do they do with the running game, it's about Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's why they invested the money they did. So, good options out there. I do like that secondary market that you just showed. Those are all quality players. And again, I do think in a kid like David Bell, who really had a real knack last year, Dave, and unfortunately, he had that injury in training camp that kind of set him back a little bit. But they just really liked the way he was able to, first of all, he rarely, if ever, missed an assignment. They were really impressed by the way he blocked down the field. And then not only that, he's just one of those guys, much like Amari Cooper, who just finds those soft spots in defenses and runs precise routes and knows how to get open. So, his guy they found in it was the third or the fourth round of the draft last year. So those guys are out there. And, I know that this is what these guys are doing over these last few weeks. And as we lead up to the draft is finding these pieces that they need.
Yeah, you got to give Deshaun Watson some easy throws. Give him the easy button with a guy that turns a 3-yard pass into a 12-yard gain.
And I think that can be your tight end as well. I think David Njoku has that kind of athletic ability. I mean, you've seen the Chiefs do that kind of stuff with Kelsey, where Mahomes takes, a 1 or 2 step drop and gets the ball to his tight end, and whether or not it's, him breaking a tackle or, whatever the case may be. But I think Njoku is also a guy who, first of all, he grew on and off the field last year. We were all in the media very impressed by the way that it seemed like whatever messages the coaches were giving to David were sinking in. And he really became one of the more outspoken leaders on that team last year. And I don't see any reason why he's not going to take another step, because they believe in him. They want to get him the ball. And obviously he has the athletic ability to do those kinds of things.
Yep. He next evolution, he becomes the red zone threat that they need. I think that,
no doubt.
I think that happens with Deshaun Watson. Tom Withers and I are going to take one more time out, other side of the break. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers, riding a big winning streak. One more game before the All-Star break. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back talking Cavs with Tom Withers.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers now on Sports4CLE. So Donovan Mitchell was asked by the NBA to participate in the three-point contest for the second time in his career. He declined the invite. Tom, I think if you think about this logically, I think the reason is he's kind of recovering from that groin injury, and a three-point shooting contest would be a lot of strain. Probably more so than a game, because you're shooting so many threes in such a compacted amount of time.
Yeah, I think that's part of his thinking, Dave. And, knock on wood, he's finally healthy. He's kind of finally, it looks like, gotten past that groin issue that's bothered him for the better part of a month. We saw some bursts out of him last night that we hadn't seen in a while. So I think he's also, he's going back to Utah. I think he's also got a full plate going in out there. He talked last night about reflecting on returning to the place where he began and really, kind of savoring the chance to go back as an all-star. He's hosting a comedy event on Friday night. So he's got a lot of things going on besides the three-point contest. And I thought it was kind of funny last night when I asked him about it. I had forgotten last year that he didn't get to play in the game here because he had an upper respiratory infection. And he said, well, and he said he was planning to drop 50, and then Steph Curry ended up doing that in the game. So don't think that Donovan may not, try to win that MVP on Sunday night. He might skip the 3-point shooting contest on Saturday, but I'd look for Donovan Mitchell to try to put on a show for kind of like, quote unquote, his home folks on Sunday night.
Yeah, and you know what? They will probably allow him to do so. That's genuinely the way it works.
Absolutely.
So the Cavs won their 7th in a row over the Spurs last night. Greg Popovich on what he saw from the Cavs.
Well, we played a hell of a team. Coach Bickerstaff does a great job with those guys. They execute, they're aggressive, really play some good solid defense, which is going to serve them well in the playoffs. And I couldn't be more proud of our guys. All those young guys, we spotted them a quarter, and then after that I thought we got tougher, we got more aggressive, we got more physical, moved the ball better, moved bodies better. A lot of good stuff to learn from and to keep improving. So I was very pleased with them. Yeah, I think we gave up 20 points off turnovers in the first half. I thought we played a little bit back on our heels in that first quarter, that kind of thing. But they came through it. We, let them know what they had to do. Because there's no magic out there. It's just, your pace, your physicality, playing the right way, and we did it for 3 quarters. So obviously that's not enough, but they were fine. Like I said, I was proud of them.
And Tom, when Greg Popovich compliments you, he doesn't do that often. So that'll tell you a little bit about kind of the respect the young Cavs are starting to garner.
Yeah, it wasn't a real good performance by the Cavs last night, Dave. And I think that is, listen, I think it's human nature when you're going against a young team that's lost 12 straight games coming in. And you have, Philly on the horizon, the All-Star break on the horizon. You're bound to have a little bit of a lapse or a letdown. And the Cavs had one last night. And, as JB Bickerstaff talked about after the game, he felt they were lucky to get away with the win. And I would agree with him. I thought, the Spurs really kind of outplayed the Cavs for the better part of 3 quarters after the Cavs got that big lead. But, down the stretch, they were able to reestablish themselves defensively, kind of assert their will, and were able to pull away with a fairly comfortable win. I think what's been big to me, Dave, over these last 7 games, and it really began with that loss at home to Miami, that 3-point loss a couple of weeks ago. The Cavs are starting to establish their identity. They're finally figuring out who they are and what they do best. And what they do best, especially early on in games, is to establish themselves inside, which is to get the ball to Jared Allen, get the ball to Evan Mobley, take advantage of having 2 7-footers on the floor, and good things will happen. Because once you establish yourself inside, defenses have to start cheating in that lane a little bit. That leaves those shooters on the perimeter open. And as long as you knock down shots, you're going to make teams pay. So, I do love the fact, and Popovich did mention this as well, is that the Cavs are a terrific defensive team when they want to be. And as you get towards the playoffs, when the games become more meaningful, it's more about, or it's as much about, stopping teams from scoring than putting the ball in the basket. And it's nice to see that the Cavs have finally recognized that.
Yeah, you mentioned Mobley and Allen, and Evan Mobley has really stepped things up the last couple of months, averaging almost a double-double as you see his splits here. So 17.1 points, 8.7 rebounds in January, 18 points, 9.3 rebounds thus far in February. Jared Allen is averaging better than a double-double in February, almost 20 points, 19.9 points, 11.4 rebounds, in 7 games this month. Tom, the thing that says is Darius Garland hasn't scored as much, but the Cavs are winning. He's kind of taken a step back and said, all right, they don't need me to do that. They need me to get the ball to other people.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches, isn't it? I look at those numbers that you put up there on Mobley, Dave, and I think about the number that stands out to me is 21. He's 21 years old. This guy should be a junior in college, and I think we forget that sometimes. And, I tend to when I watch Mobley, and I like the fact that they are finally figuring out how to get him the ball early in possessions. And I think unfortunately for Karis LeVert, that falls into a problem with that second unit for the Cavs, where they don't get him the ball until there's 7 seconds to go in the shot clock, and then you got to kind of do something quickly. So I like the fact that the Cavs are establishing themselves early in terms of getting the ball inside to both Allen and Mobley. And to your point, Dave, that falls on Darius Garland. And if Darius Garland can be selfless enough to realize that averaging 11 points a game, 11 assists a game would be more important than averaging 21 points, this team is going to go a long way, because it's all about how they distribute the ball to those other guys. It's about letting Donovan Mitchell, get his and take over games when they really need a basket. So, fortunately, they have a kid in Garland who I think understands that, it's about the team. He has no ego. He's got the big max contract already, so he doesn't have to worry about that. So, yeah, it's really nice to see this team grow, and I've really been impressed by the way they've kind of come to go together over these last couple of weeks. Yeah,
the other thing that I'd say to Garland is you're going to get another max contract if you continue to distribute the ball and get everybody involved. There are other ways to do it. Before I let you go, a guy that the Cavs are getting ready to make it official, if it isn't yet already. Danny Green was drafted by the team back in the day, has been injured, has only played a handful of games this year, but he seems to be a guy that brings what they need. And he's played on 3 championship teams.
It's amazing, Dave. So I guess I can say this now. So before the trade deadline, I was standing on the court talking to Kobe Altman. This is about a week before the deadline, and Memphis was in town. And Danny Green walked by and said hello and came over and shook our hands. And I even said to him, it feels like a lifetime ago that he was here last, which was, 2009, right? So it does seem like a lifetime ago. But, if you had asked me going into the trade deadline to find, give me a list of everybody in the league and who's available. And if you're looking for a team guy with postseason experience that would fit seamlessly into the culture that the Cavs have already built here, it's Danny Green. It's absolutely perfect. It's the exact thing that this team needed, was another guy in that locker room that's been through those postseason wars, who's not worried about, getting his next contract or anything else. He's going to be able to show the way to these young guys, because, we forget, and we look, as much as we love what we're seeing out of Mobley and Garland, they haven't been in the playoffs yet. And that's a huge step for those young guys. Donovan Mitchell will tell you that he's been through that. Ricky Rubio has been through that. I still think we're going to see Kevin Love get some important minutes as this team evolves and goes forward. But yeah, to me, Danny Green is an absolutely a perfect guy to pick up. And I like the fact that the Cavs stayed pat and believed in their conviction going into the trade deadline and didn't do anything outrageous, because they didn't need to. They made their big move in July.
The other thing is, think about what Ricky Rubio meant to this team last year. I think Danny Green's the exact same thing. With instead of distributing the ball, he's going to shoot it and play defense, but he's going to have a lot of young guys following him, just like Rubio did.
100%. And let's not get caught up in what Danny Green does over the next 5 or 10 games. Think about what he can bring you in April and May, because he is still coming back off of an injury, and it's going to take him a minute to get himself right.
Tom Withers, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Tom.
My pleasure, Dave. Nice talking to you.
All right, Tom Withers, always great stuff. Associated Press, talk to us about the Cavs and the Browns. Check them out. Always really good stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you tomorrow at 4. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.